technical difficulties. But no, Coach, thank you for coming on. As I said before, this episode we have legendary Coach Jerry Hill, former coach at Columbia High School, Irvington High School, Montclair, and now at
York High School.
York High School. York High
in
School in Maine.
Maine.
Okay, so I'm just gonna get
Also,
started.
Coach, let me throw in that I am the volleyball coach at Sanford High School in Maine also. The girls will be mad if I don't throw that in there.
Okay, you know what? That's funny because I actually forgot you used to coach down there. You used to coach.
Yeah, for 30 years I coached volleyball at Demers High School with real legendary coach Elizabeth Powell.
Hmm.
And I was part of, geez, 11 state championships, maybe 9 county championships, 3 TOCs. So I coached with her. I was a JV, I was her assistant JV and freshman for a lot of years, coaching with Beth. And I tell you, let me also add this, that she has a lot to do with any success I ever had coaching basketball, because I learned a lot from her coaching. And that's one of the things, that I was hoping that I taught you when you were my assistant for a couple of years. And you can never stop learning. You learn from, even if it's a different sport, you can still learn coaching. And it's always, you're always a student as a coach, I believe, anyway.
Yeah, most definitely. I have to say, as a coach, I just had to give. I probably taken maybe 80% of what I know from you, and then the rest I just pieced together. So, um,
That's very nice. Thank you. That's a great compliment. And I will
I,
say too, Coach, one of the great things about coaching as well is when you see former players go into coaching, and that's what you did. You played for me. We talked about this, but unfortunately, I only had a chance to coach you 1 year. I wish it could have been all 4 of your high school years,
me too.
but I was very lucky to have you for one. And then you came back and coached with me at Columbia, which was awesome. And then, of course, you became the head coach and a successful head coach as well. So I was really proud of you. I was proud to be all that you've accomplished as well.
Thank you. I mean, one thing I want to do is I kind of want to get like, because I've spoken to you about it, like you have, an interesting story, like an interesting path and everything like that. So, can you kind of tell us like how you got into coaching and like where it started?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in high school, I had a coach, Jim Kane, who was great. He actually, again, he came and I grew up in Patterson, and then I moved in the middle of my high school years, and I went to Manchester High School where I graduated. And Jim Kane was my coach. And when I played in college, I played at Ramapo College, and I had two coaches in Rich Merlack and Julian Levine. And when I was a senior in college, uh, I was like, you know what? I want to coach. I want to stay with sports. So I went into teaching. And of course, teaching and coaching, go hand in hand, which is nice. It's a nice profession if you want to coach as well. So I was as an assistant coach at Northern Highlands High School under real legendary Bergen County coach Herb Cohen. And I coached for a year at Ridgefield Park with Gerald Akridge, who became the head coach at Englewood. Eddie, when you were a senior in high school, we scrimmaged Englewood, and Gerald Akridge was the coach at Englewood.
Hmm.
And he was very successful at Englewood. And then I got a teaching job at Demarest, and I got the head coaching job there, and I was there for 6 years, and not that successful, to be honest. I mean, we had a couple of years we were pretty good, but I wanted to go and coach real big time basketball. And Essex County, there's nothing better than Essex County basketball. Now, the Union County people will say Union County basketball, and Union County basketball is excellent as well. So I applied for the job at Irvington, and I was lucky enough to get it, and I coached there for 3 years. And after 3 years, they wanted me to come down and teach there, and I couldn't give up my teaching job at Demers, so it didn't really work out at Irvington. But I had heard through the grapevine that there was an opening at Columbia, and I went and interviewed for that job, and that's really what propelled my coaching career, if you will, getting the job at Columbia. And my first year at Columbia, not only did I have a great team, but I had a great group of kids. And you may not remember this, Coach Eddie, but after our loss to Morristown in the state tournament, that was on a Friday, and Monday I'm collecting the uniforms, and you and your teammates, we were all sitting in the gym, and I'll never forget it. I collected the uniforms, we said our goodbyes, and said, okay, we'll see you guys at the sports awards dinner. Nobody left the gym. I've never had that experience ever again. Nobody left the gym. We didn't want to leave. We didn't want the season to end. It was just so much fun for all of us. And I remember that like it was yesterday. Us sitting there and just talking about the season. It was really, very bittersweet actually.
Yeah, I remember that too. It was
And
kind
I credit you and your teammates for really helping me, just with everything with coaching, and that's what makes coaching great. That the wins are great, championships great if you can win them, but that was really special.
yeah. I mean, I had Doug on, and he was speaking about that. Uh, I had Russell. Well, I'm gonna have Russell, but I speak to Russell all the time, obviously. And we always talk about that. Like, like it wasn't fun before you came. Um, not to say that everything has to be fun. It's a sport.
Yeah.
You work hard, and sometimes it isn't. But it kind of felt like, we were kind of. There's no disrespect to who was there for you, but it kind of felt like, I don't know. It felt more like we had somebody who really cared about us and played, and put more joy into the game than where
You
it
know
was
what's
before.
funny, Coach Eddie, and I think this has been lost somewhere along the way, unfortunately. But the game is supposed to be fun,
Mm.
and it takes time to learn it and understand it as a coach as well. But to remember that the reason you guys are there, you don't want to, you can forget about school, you can forget about politics, you forget about the world outside, and it's all about being in the gym and you just play and you sweat and you work hard and all those things. And that's, what it's supposed to be about. And it's sad because I feel like it's been lost somewhere along the way sometimes, where becomes so important for other things, but you never want to give up the part that it's supposed to be fun. And I'll tell you a couple quick stories. Our first win was against Somerville, went into overtime, and Dougie hit the three to start the overtime, put us up three, and I think we went on like a 10-0 run, and we beat Somerville. That was my first win at Columbia, which was awesome. And I think, one of the most exciting, obviously I've had some, I know that's what you're going to probably want to know, some great experiences, at Columbia. I mean, we were in the county finals against a college team, friggin' Bloomfield Tech, 4 Division I players. And I'll tell you a funny, interesting thing that, about that team, Coach. We lost 6 games that year, but we only lost to 4 teams. We lost to Seton Hall Prep. We lost to Linden in the state tournament. We lost to Bloomfield Tech in the county finals. All 3 of those teams were in the TOC. And our only other loss, the only other team we lost to was East Orange, who was tremendous that year. And they lost to Linden in the state tournament. They would have been a TOC team. That year we lost to 4 teams and basically 4 TOC teams. And that was just a tremendous, tremendous year. And,
Beat Science that year.
Oh, what's that?
Beat Science that year.
That was incredible. Jamil, Jamil was only a sophomore, and when he came to our team, that was like the missing piece of the puzzle. I mean, Rotimi was our point guard, and Rotimi was great, but Rotimi was able to, go and play the 2, and Jamil became the point guard. But Science Park was a tremendous team that year, and we had to go to Science Park that day. It was a kind of a snowy morning. I remember that. We almost didn't play the game because the weather was iffy, but we played, and they threw the kitchen sink at us, and Jamil did an unbelievable job just breaking the press. I think Namdi Ike had 34 points that year because like Jamil would break the press, layup, and Rotimi hit a couple of big threes that game too. So yeah, that was crazy, great win. And then we played Montclair actually in the semis because Montclair had upset East Orange. And we had a nice lead against Montclair, but typical Montclair, they come roaring back, and we were able to hold them off. And, to be honest, Bloomfield Tech really took it to us. We couldn't, they were just bigger and better. They had the kid Butler who ended up going to West Virginia, and the kid Drummond, he went to Villanova. So
Yeah.
they were loaded.
Semi-pro
But
team.
let me give kudos to the man I'm talking to, because we're playing Randolph my first year, and everybody should know this story. We're down 14 going into the fourth quarter, and Eddie Turner, 6 threes in the fourth quarter alone. He has 20 points and gets us back within two. And we come out of, I was just telling his wife this story. We come out of the timeout, and they double team him. They double teamed him. And somebody else took the shot and unfortunately didn't make it. So we ended up losing by two. But 20 points in the fourth quarter, it's the greatest offensive output I've ever seen or been part of.
Yeah,
And you could shoot the three for sure, no doubt.
What was funny about that too is like I remember like in the huddle, like um going into the fourth quarter, we were losing, and I just never felt like we just ever lose to any teams up there. Like it was kind of like, but it's like for people that don't know, they might see Randolph or like West Morris or Morris Knoll, these places, but it's not just the team that you're really playing against. It's kind of like you're playing against yourself, because it's so hard to get motivated for those teams. And if they have to really be decent, they'll beat you. They got their refs, they got their place up there. It's an hour bus ride.
Yeah. Randolph and West Morris, both teams were good that year.
Yeah.
They if I remember correctly, both of them made it. One of them made it to the finals of their county tournament that year in the semis. But Coach Eddie, remember, one of our best wins was beating Morristown. And so we were 4-4, and we're playing West Morris Central, and we're down one with a second to go, and one of our players takes a shot and gets fouled. He misses both foul shots, and Russell taps the ball in.
At the buzzer,
and we win by, incredible. We win by one. Now, I was just talking to Coach Pace about this. You remember Coach Pace?
Coach Pace, everybody thought he was in the mob.
I was just talking to him this morning. I told him I was coming on with you, and he was like, "Oh, tell him I said hello." And we were reminiscing about when he was helping us coach there. He did a great job, and he was such an asset to the team. So we beat West Morris that game, and then we go on to win two more. So now we're 7-4. We're playing pretty well.
Mm.
And then I remember Mike Kinney in the paper said, big matchup coming up, a hot Columbia team versus Morristown. Morristown had 2-6-7 kids. And remember, we had a game plan, and we were going to slow the game down, and we were going to keep the game in the 40s. And you guys, we worked it great, and we ended up beating them. And it was an awesome win.
Yeah, I knew all those guys up there too. It was very personal for me. I was so glad I ever beat them.
Yeah. So we beat them, and that made us 8-4. And then we're going to play Seton Hall Prep at Columbia. And I remember the atmosphere was electric. It was unbelievable. I remember we jumped on it right away.
Yeah.
We had the lead for 31 and a half minutes. And then they had a 3-point. We were up 2. They had a 3-point play, foul, and Busby made the foul shot, and we were down 1, and we came down and we missed, and then we had a foul, and we ended up losing by, I think, 3. But it's hard to say like a loss is a great game, but for one of the greatest games I was ever part of, and unfortunately we didn't win, but
most definitely that was one of the. We beat Morristown, who was like a top 15 and 12 team at the time.
Yeah, they were legit.
And playing Seton Hall, that was probably the best game I've probably been a part of, and we lost that game. So they have like they got the buzz. It seems like they roll out the same team every year with different people, right?
Yeah. Listen, the truth is the truth, Coach. You coached in high school too. It's hard to compete with Catholic schools. And listen, he was a great coach. We all know that. But it's hard to compete when you can just get kids from all over the place. And here's our team, and we're not making excuses. This is our team, and you have your team, and let's go. And, you guys answered the bell. It's just, unfortunately, we fell a point or two short, but, you know, not for a lack of effort for sure. And, your team was just a wonderful team to coach.
Yeah. Do you think that like not knowing us when you came in kind of was that a reason you think it was a slow start, or you think, I mean, we weren't going to be Seton Hall, but
Yeah.
you
I
know,
don't think there's any question. So when I get the job and we don't really have much of a summer, and it takes time. Like you hear this all the time with when players are playing for another team or when a new coach comes in. It takes time to develop chemistry. It takes time for people to get to know one another. And listen, to be honest with you, it takes time for the players to trust the coach. And yeah, we started out, we were, a little rough. We'd play well, we'd win, not so great, we'd lose. And I remember we were 4-4 playing West Morris, and man, we needed that win. And we were lucky to get that win with Russell's tap. And then all of a sudden, the ball started rolling. And you know what's interesting, Coach? A couple of years later, when Jamil and Yvonne were seniors, remember we started the season out 14-0, and we were number 6 in the state, which I believe is probably the highest ranking Columbia's ever had in the state. Maybe back in the Mark Bryant days, they might have been. We were 14-0, and we peaked. We were our first 6. We were rolling. We were playing great. And then, we played Seton Hall Prep, actually, at Seton Hall Prep. And I remember we lost, and they stormed the court. I mean, that's how good we were at the time, and that's how big the rivalry had become. We had beaten Seton Hall by 25 at the Tip-Off Classic early in the season. So they were, But the point being is that we peaked early that season. And then, we fizzled at the end, and that's on the coach. Like, you can't let that happen. So we ended the season 20-4. We ended the season with a great record, but, we were playing our best ball early. I think with your year, I think the same thing. It was sort of a seesaw. We weren't playing great early. In the middle of the season, we were playing fantastic. And then we ended up losing to Morristown in the state tournament. They had come back ready to play. So we had beaten them earlier in the season. So they, to their coach's credit, they had their game plan and they stuck to it. And they forced us at a tempo that, was more conducive for that team, for them, and we ended up losing. But yeah, it does take time. And again, we always said this, Coach Eddie, if we had one more year together, we could have done some damage.
Definitely. I think if we could have just gotten to West Orange that year,
yeah,
we could have, it was kind of like, Morristown, like this always happens. I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's just the way it turns out sometimes, but it's just playing that team that in your conference the third time, that sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and, yeah, oh, you're right. And then, so there's no doubt, you get a draw. We got a cruddy draw because I think West Orange, I think Morristown went to I believe the sectional final that year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they beat West Orange. They ended up upsetting West Orange. I don't know who they lost to. Probably East Side or something.
Yeah, maybe one of the Watchung teams. But we always talked about that. If our group had one more year together. Now, to be fair, it's sort of the same thing at Montclair. When I went to Montclair, it was a senior-laden team. And we had a great year. We lost what a game. We lost to Bloomfield in the state tournament. And same thing, we were down 2. We were down 18, actually. In the second half, we came back, cut it to 2. And we were on the foul line with 4 seconds to go. And we missed the foul shots, and then we had a foul. And to their credit, they made it 2 foul shots. But the same thing with that Montclair team. If we had a chance to have that team together one more year, again, I believe we could have done some real damage. But, that's what happens. And, you make the best of it. But in the year that I had you and your teammates, and the year that I had, the Montclair team in their senior year, both were really enjoyable, great years, So,
How long were you at Montclair?
4 years. And it was the same thing, too. Like the travel, it got tough, and my son was getting older, and it was just unfortunately it was a weird situation. They to be totally transparent, they decided that they wanted to open up the job to a teacher in the district. That if a teacher in the district had applied for the job, uh, that he would get first dibs at it. And again, they were nice enough to offer me a teaching job. There was actually a social studies opening at Montclair. They said, if you come to teach at Montclair, everything's fine. But the same sort of situation at Irvington, I couldn't give up my teaching job. You know what I mean? You've been there so long, and you get tenure, and you just can't. So unfortunately, I couldn't do it anymore at Montclair, and I had to give it up. But it did give me an opportunity to see, Kevin, my son, play his junior and senior year in high school, and so I guess in a weird way it kind of worked out. But I did miss it, and I did enjoy coaching there as I did at Columbia, and I was at Columbia for 8 years.
Yeah.
And I just kind of felt like, and you were the assistant coach, and it was time to move on. I think, unfortunately.
You kind of explained to us, like, we talked about it a little bit before you got on, but it's like the differences between a program like Columbia or the atmosphere or whatever and Montclair.
Yeah, well, one of the advantages, in a school like Montclair is, and it's one town, so it's more of a community type feeling. And Columbia, and I suspect this is probably true in a lot of districts where there is, different communities going to the same high school. Montclair I felt was a little bit more tight knit, and more of the alumni are more involved in Montclair. Now, as we talked about, you'd see guys who played, would introduce themselves to me. I played on a team in '72. I played on a team in '66. When I would go to a couple of their football games, you see all the old timers at the game, with their jackets on, and there's just a great amount of pride in their athletic program. And the same thing with basketball, and you have people who had played and had come back, and and took a great amount of pride. And again, I'm not talking about guys who graduated, like when you and your teammates used to come and scrimmage us at Columbia, you're talking about men my age, who
Yeah.
have played, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And, and I guess probably has a lot to do with the fact that, Montclair is one town, and Columbia is two towns. And, to be perfectly honest with you, it's pretty distinct towns. South Orange has its own, sort of way, and Maplewood does,
Yeah.
and you're bringing that together. So I think it's kind of an interesting mix, in those two towns.
Yeah. Like you said, like I could speak for, playing at Columbia or being in a community. It's not really a place where, like when you were there, right? How many people came up? Like you said, nobody was coming up and introducing themselves to you. It's kind of a place where they didn't really uh, encourage that type of thing. It was like, nobody wanted to come back after they left, unless like when you started, then it was kind of like, all right, for the next 8 years, everybody who knew you probably would come back,
Yeah.
but nobody prior to that had any
Well,
interest in that.
I'll tell you what's interesting, Coach, and I could use the basketball camp. When I would try to run a basketball camp at Columbia, it was hard to get the communities, to rally around that. So I would actually have to go around, and like I would go to like the swim club, and I would go to, different areas just to try to find kids. And, we'd get anywhere from 18 to 20 kids to come to summer camp, basketball camp. At Montclair, the community was all in, and, I get 70, 80 kids at the basketball camp. And, now Columbia did run, I guess it was South Orange did run some type of um, summer camp that they had different programs you could go to. You can go to basketball, you can go to this, you can go to that. but it wasn't the same kind of community feel. Now, again, I'm not here to criticize, South Orange and Maplewood in that sense, just to simply say, it's two towns and two distinct towns with their own personalities,
Mhm.
versus one. And I think that's probably has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Like I said,
But let me
see,
throw this in too, Coach. I met some great people at Columbia, wonderful parents, supportive. I mean, I can go on and name people, and for the fear of leaving somebody out, I don't want to do anything personally. But I met so many great, wonderful people who were very supportive. So I don't want it to sound like, there was no support, because there was. People willing to do the extra to help out the program. Now, also goes with the coaching territory that you're going to get parents that, don't like you for a variety of reasons, whether they don't like your style of coaching or the offense you play, defenses you run, or, their kids aren't getting enough playing time. You get some of that, but that was the minority. The majority were great and wonderful, and I loved my years at Columbia. And I met some wonderful, obviously, kids like you, although you're not a kid anymore, and and a lot of wonderful parents as well.
yeah, I mean, I could kind of say like when I came back to coach at Columbia, um, you kind of were like, I mean, I coached like, AAU and stuff like that, but that's nothing like high school. That's high school is like organized. It's like it's a professional thing, and
Yeah,
you get paid to do it. And AAU is kind of like you can get a lot away with a lot more there. So you were kind of prepping me, and you were giving me like lessons and things like that as a coach. I remember giving me a lesson about parenting, and it was easy to do because you would tell me stuff like, listen, can't trust the parents, they'll turn on you, and then you'll have your good parents, but you have to kind of just block them all out and do your own thing. You're gonna have this guy saying this guy saying that, and it kind of wasn't really, for me, it was easy advice to follow because I was kind of had personality anyway. I didn't really care too much about people. Like when people are around me and they're with me, I love them to death, and I'll take any input or whatever the case may be. But when I can kind of sense when people don't have the you know don't like you too much or whatever the case may be, that's way easier to block out than
yeah. Well, you know what it is like, and I learned this when I was a young coach, and my mentor taught me this. He goes, and again, it's not to be nasty or mean or anything, but you keep the parents at a distance, and it's Mr. and it's Mrs. or Miss or whatever the case is. And, you know, and then how many times I've met parents and they say, no, call me Tom, call me Joe, call me Bob, whatever it might be. But, it just comes to this when it comes to your own children, and you have a son now. Um, it's they always want what's best for their kid, and when their kid hurts, they hurt. And again, I went through it as a parent as well, with everything, with playing time, and I dealt with the same situations. So you just have to understand that, they're looking at it this way. It's my son, and then it's the team. And, they obviously want what's best for their son. And you have to take all that into consideration. So I always took everything with a grain of salt. I mean, I was never disrespectful to a parent. I was never disrespectful to a player. And I understood, when the parents were angry at me, you know, I'm sure it was because they were angry at me because, their son maybe wasn't getting enough playing time or whatever the situation might be. We take all that, but you have to understand that, it can change. And I don't mean to sound, demeaning to any parent, but it changes when their son's not getting playing time. I mean,
You also had a rule that you told me about. I kind of want you to explain. That I used after you left. You always tell me and say, listen, if a parent wants to meet with you, you'd meet with them, but the kid has to be present.
I'll tell you. So Don Harnum, who is now the athletic director at Rider, we used to go to the Rider camp. Awesome basketball camp in the summer. So he was the head basketball coach at the time, and then he became the AD. So we were just talking one day on the side, and I said to him, well, you're lucky because at the college level, you don't have, I'm sure, much parental involvement. And he said, oh, you'd be surprised. And he gave me this piece of advice. He said, but I never meet with the parent without the player there because a lot of times it's the parent that has the problem with what's going on with the player. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got. So I would tell, and it's still my rule. I say to the parents when I meet with them for the season, I said, if you want to meet with me, fine. I said, but my assistant coach will be there and your son will be there because I want to make sure that the lines of communication are open and clear for everybody. Because a lot of times, the parents have the problem, and maybe not so much the son. So, I've been in situations where, I've met with the parent and the son and, the son will say, well, no, it's not really how I feel, so I just want to make sure, and I'll tell you this, Coach, and I think this is another important piece of advice as well. Keeping the lines of communication open are vital. Have to have communication, have to be able to, resolve issues.
Yeah. That type of advice actually ended up being crucial because, I don't know if you know this, but it actually, a lot of times, like I've had to actually use that a couple of times, I'll meet with you, but your son has to be present or, and they don't want to meet with you after that sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Well, I would say this, Coach. I'd say probably a good percentage of the time, when I would say like, okay, when do you want to meet? Well, let's do it right after practice, maybe, and your son could be there. You know what? And then they don't want to meet. But again, I want to make sure that, we both come off, in a positive way, because again, that's a minority. The majority of people were great and, no problems. And, we're just talking about a small percentage. I mean, that's life, like, so.
Most definitely, man. I kind of want to talk to you about, like, I mean, did you know that you were, when I texted you last night, you sounded a little surprised about knowing that being the only coach to take a Columbia team to the Essex County final.
Yeah, it's funny when you said that, then I was thinking about that and I was like, yeah, that's really interesting because, I know Columbia's had some great teams in the past. So, Steve Tober on Sideline Chatter always puts, like, when the county tournament comes on, he always puts like the history. And I went back and I looked it up and I was able to find it. I was like, wow, it was pretty interesting. But yeah, that's very nice. Listen, I'll make this very clear. And I think this is something we all know. It's easy to be a great coach when you got great players. I mean, that team had was special. I mean, yeah, we had a Division I point guard. You have Ryan, and just it was a great team. And I go all the way around the line, name all the players. But again, to give everybody equal justice, the team was great, and so. We made the county finals, but I had a tremendous amount of talent on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the best coaching jobs you've ever done, honestly, was the year you had Kenny Rubenstein. I think it was Floyd. Damn, who else was on that team? I can't remember. Oh, Femi.
Matt was the point guard.
Matt was the point guard.
And Sean.
Or anybody who else. I mean, I'm leaving
Sean.
out. Sean Glenn. Yeah, there you go. I'm like, there's somebody crucial I'm missing. I knew it was a kid.
Yeah. I'll tell you, though, this is interesting. That group and your group, very similar in a sense that the four seniors, after our last practice, or one of the last practices, the four of them were getting in a car. And I was like, where are you guys going? They said, oh, we're going out to dinner. And it made me feel so great as a coach. Here, you're four seniors. We only had four seniors that year. And they're all going out to dinner together. They were a good group, tight-knit group, and they got along great. And you can't be good without chemistry. And, when you have a senior group, especially that get along and, they create a good chemistry. And I got to tell you something. We beat Seton Hall, great win. With your group, we beat Morristown, great win. But when we went to Elizabeth and beat Elizabeth at the Dunn Center, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you an interesting story. And Coach Pinto and I still talk to Coach Pinto from time to time, and we laugh about this. Early in the game, first of all, they come out of we get their pregame and we're in the layup line. And maybe there's 5 minutes to go before the game starts. And here they come waltzing out of the locker room. And I was like, man, like they feel like they got this game won already. So now we start the game. And early in the game, I say to our team, after they're shooting a foul shot, I go, be prepared. They may press us. And one of their players turns to me and goes, don't worry, coach. We'll let you know when we're going to press you. And I was like, wow. And then the next thing you know, we were down most of the game. And in the fourth quarter, we turned it around. And I'll tell you, Matt played the game of his life, handling their press, and he made a couple of key foul shots. And we beat them at the Dunn Center, which was amazing. That they were top 10 in the state. And, it was, again, it's one of my top 3 wins for sure. So I do appreciate that. But that was a great group to coach. And we came back to Columbia. We played Piscataway. And we lost 58-55. But again, it was a ridiculous game.
That was a great game. Yeah, I remember that. It was crazy.
It was just a good basketball game. Like, 2 teams battling the whole way. And it's funny. We were up at halftime. And Femi got his 4th foul. And that killed us, because they had a big kid who was pretty good. And when Femi went out of the game, that turned it. If Femi didn't get in foul trouble, we would have won that game.
Yeah. On this podcast that I have, I usually, I ask whoever's on to name their top 3 big men and top 3 guards, right? And
you're really gonna put me on the spot, Coach Eddie?
No, I'm saying that to say because you said a name that I don't really want to be forgotten because he was really good. And Ryan Bacon always comes up. Some older guys come up for when I wasn't even there.
Well, let me tell you this, because I remember this quote. We were meeting up in the South Gym after a game, and you said, Femi, you're the most dominant player I've ever seen at Columbia High School. And you said, you're not the best player, but you could be the most dominant player we've had. Do you remember saying that to Femi?
I remember saying something to that magnitude.
Yeah.
I remember, after a game or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, because you were right. That kid could have been dominant.
He would do stuff.
I mean, he was, yeah.
He Jamil can control the game in another way, but in high school it's like as good as your big man is, you gotta have guards, man. If you have if you have a above average guard, it's just so helpful, but as a big man, I saw Ryan Bacon before Jamil got there.
Yeah.
And I saw he was still a good player, still a great player. The team was still good. I think you guys were 18-7. I think the year you guys lost to Irvington, you had
we were 18-8 that year, yeah, and we lost to Irvington in a pretty good game, actually. It was a tough, we lost at Irvington, and it was a good game, yeah.
But it's when Jamil got there, it turned into something totally different. But with Femi, you were, I don't know, I guess I can't remember what you guys were doing before that point. I know you guys ended up well.
We ended that season 19-9, but you're right. It was kind of an up and down year in a sense because we, even though Matt played the best game at the end of the season, he was playing his best basketball, but we went through a stretch where we had a tough time getting into our offense. And I remember, after a game, Femi saying, we got to be able to get the ball. Once we got the ball over half court, we can get the ball into Femi, and a lot of good things could happen. But we had a tough time. We were playing guard by committee for a little while like that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and so I mean, that's the reason why I said it, because he was kind of like a big man that can control the game in
Yeah,
high
so
school,
good.
which is crazy. Like he would stop people from coming to the basket completely, or if they had another big man on the other team, he would be pump faking 3 or 4 times before,
Yeah.
and then he cleaned up the boards where he finished well. So
You know
that's
what's
part of the
funny,
reason.
Coach? I think maybe his best game of the season was actually in the against Eastside, and Eastside was tremendous that year. And I think he had his best game of the season, and they had two really good big men. But he dominated that game. He was the best player on the floor. I mean, they beat us
Hmm.
pretty handily. They were much better than us, but he was the best player on the floor that day.
You told me that day. I don't know if you remember. I didn't get a chance to, because I was coaching JV at the time. You guys scrimmaged St. Peter's.
Yeah,
And you told me, listen, these guys, they destroyed us, but it's like, listen, Femi was the only person like he belonged
yeah,
out
yeah.
there.
Yeah, oh yeah, St. Peter's. Yeah, Mike Kelly. Mike Kelly's the chief of police now in Jersey City.
Oh,
Their old
really?
basketball coach. Yeah, they were they were ridiculous that year, St. Peter's. Yeah,
So
but
can you kind of like explain to me like what the challenges are with keeping, like when you're at Columbia, I had the same thing before us. It was the same problem. Hell, even I was gonna go to Seton Hall or St. Pat's, one of them. But like, can you explain to me like what the challenges were, like trying to keep kids home to come to Columbia?
yeah. Listen, it's hard. I mean, again, here like Seton Hall or no more St. Anthony's or St. Pat's, but like they're going, to Florida for tournaments and to California for tournaments and doing all those things. It's hard to compete. But I think a couple of things, one is, to convince certainly the player and the family that, their best opportunity is going to be at your local public school. Because quite frankly, you go to a Catholic school and you might even be playing that year, but the next year they could get 4 transfers in and, you're on the bench again.
Yeah,
And I think, you know, the opportunity to play and showcase yourself a lot of times is you're better off at the public high school. I mean, you were a great player for us. Now you could have went to St. Pat's and you would have played, but you might have been the sixth or seventh or eighth man on that team. You know what I
mm,
mean? Because they're bringing in kids from all over the place,
yeah.
and you come to Columbia, and you get to play 30 minutes a game, and you dominate the game, and you're one of our best players. And I think that's one of the things you know to convince them. And I also think too, let's not lose the fact that education, you're going to get at Columbia, you're going to get a great education, or at Montclair, you're going to get a great education. So I think that's got to play a part in it too. But I think, staying strictly in the athletic world, the fact that you're playing with kids you grew up with, you're playing with your friends, and you're going to play. I think that's the most important thing. I think a lot of times these kids go to Catholic schools, thinking that great things are going to happen, and ultimately they find out that, they're just they get lost in the shuffle, and they end
I
up
gotta say,
transferring
the
back.
most um, for me, like even after when I left Columbia, the joy of basketball wasn't there anymore. When you get to play with your friends,
Nothing
and
better.
it's just a better, like, it's just, like I had a hard time, honestly, and this is even before you came. I even told a couple of kids I had that were older than me on. I was playing varsity when I was a freshman, and it was kind of like it's kind of like I didn't belong, right? Like I didn't, they were older than me, juniors, seniors. My sophomore year, my freshman year, I played well, but it wasn't. They weren't welcoming, and my friends were all playing JV and freshmen, and you know, we won. 2 years before you got there, we were really good. We were like top 10 in the state. We had like 3 D1 players on that team, and then like it was kind of like, well, if we won, we won. If we lost, we lost. Whatever. And then by the time my senior year came and it was all my friends, it was just like, I
That's all
cared.
that means.
You know what I mean? It's like, it was like I cared. And then when I left, it was like, I
Yeah.
just want to do the best I can do. And,
Well, you
you
know
know,
what's funny, Coach? Because let me use Beth Powell again as an example, because and this happens more in girls sports, I think, than boys sports. But in girls sports, freshmen can play, and they can play varsity and actually can play. So at Demers volleyball, inevitably, two or three freshmen will be on the varsity team, and there's always that issue. You have a senior, and then you have a freshman. And one of the things Coach Beth and I would always talk about is, how is this going to work socially? All her friends are playing freshmen. She's on the varsity. So when come to practice, the freshmen are in the other gym. She's in the front gym with the varsity, and she's peeking in, seeing all her friends together. Something that I'm sure you went through. Like all your boys are playing, freshman or JV, and you're with the varsity. You don't know anybody, so
yeah.
it's hard. So I think one of the things you have to be aware of as a coach is that, to make sure that the chemistry stays important. And I think one of the things we always did, or I always try to do, is when I have a team and I'm a varsity coach, and if there's going to be a freshman, to make sure we all understand that we're on the same team, and that it works. And sometimes it's hard to do, but it's something that you have to be aware of. And that's a really good point that you just made, and you used a personal example, and it's important. Just like you said. I'm going to share something with you. Sean Glenn's mom wrote me an email after the season was over, and she said something really interesting. She said, Sean went to a Catholic school up to 8th grade, and then he came to Columbia High School. They almost sent him to a Catholic school in high school, but his team, which was a pretty good team when he was in Catholic school, she said all his teammates went to Catholic schools. He went to a public school. And she said by senior year, he was the only one still playing basketball. All the other ones have stopped playing because they went to either Seton Hall or some other school, and they got lost in the shuffle. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And to your question about that, there you go. Sean was the only kid still playing basketball. So
Yeah,
I think that's important.
All right. I'm going to go through some years here, and I just want, matter of fact, I'm going to do this first. I'm going to say some names, and I just want you to say the first thing that comes to mind when I say them. So, first one I'm going to say is Russell Carter.
Russell Carter, great kid to coach, great teammate. Would do all the dirty work for you. Get on the floor, rebound, play defense, ultimate team player.
Kenny Rubenstein.
Great shooter, great two guard. The kid when you needed a basket, and especially against a team playing a zone, you wanted to go to Kenny, and he would come up big. He was very clutch, and also an underrated defensive player.
Yeah, he was pretty good on the ball.
Yeah, he was underrated defensive player.
Yeah.
Had a great family. His dad awesome, mom awesome, and obviously Doug. Are you gonna ask me about Doug?
Did I?
You didn't,
No.
but Doug was our point guard. Again, another clutch player, very smart player. As a matter of fact, I'm going to veer off and tell you a quick story. When I met all you guys after I got the job at Columbia, we had like a meet the coaches thing, and he's sitting in the front. He goes, "Tell me about your practice. How's it broken down?" I was like, "Who is this little punk ass?" I was about practice, but that was Dougie.
Okay.
Very smart, intelligent player.
Another name that gets lost in the shuffle, Nnamdi Ike.
He might be the most underrated player in Columbia history, seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
And he 6 foot, great rebounder, tough inside. And it's interesting about him, me and I love, teaching, taking the charge. Took more charges than probably any other player I've ever coached times two. Just a really tough, hard-nosed, underrated player. Like wouldn't expect him. And then all of a sudden you play us, and he's getting you a double-double.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nnamdi Ahanaku.
Oh man, Nnamdi, tough, hard-nosed kid, played hard. You know, he was like full of juice, full of vigor, like, you know, always played 100%, always played hard. And, you know, he's also could shoot, could play inside as well. And, you know, one of the toughest kids I've ever coached.
Bro, Timmy.
Rotimi, man, feisty as anything. You know, great defensive player. You know, when Jamil came, he was able to play the two spot, which I think was more, you know, better for him. But a good leader too, vocal. You know, and again, feisty in a good way though. Like, you know, he would go at it. You know, and he would challenge his teammates. He would challenge me as the coach. You know, a winner, wanted to win, and obviously onto a great career. You know, on television and singing.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Yvonne Raymond.
Wow, man. Yvonne Raymond is a special kid. Yvonne, talented, tough, at times hard to coach, no lie. But we always talk about this, Pinto and I. The kid wanted to win. The
Mm.
kid worked hard and did whatever it took to win. Took charges, handled the ball, went to the basket. Like with, I'll tell you a quick story about him. We were scrimmaging Englewood, and we still talk about this. And he's made a steal at half court. From the time he got the ball at half court, he was dunking it, and he went in with a tomahawk. So a kid from Englewood, you know, tries to block his shot. He took the kid and the ball and dunked it. But
I
I would,
remember that. That's funny.
yeah, I loved coaching Yvonne. I mean, again, he was tough at times to coach, you know, because he was very emotional, and so am I. You know, and you put those two, you know, together, and you know, sometimes, you know, but you know, he was awesome. And like I said, he just wanted to win.
Most definitely. Jamil Grace.
Special player. You know, when you just like you said, when you got a point guard who can shoot, who can handle, can pass. I mean, one of the things interesting about Jamil too, he was more interested in his assists than he was in his points, which you know makes you a special point guard. Played
Hmm.
great D, and you know he changed the game when he came to our team. That team you were talking about, when he joined that team as a sophomore, you know he made us a championship team. You know
Okay.
he's a special player.
Most definitely. I mean, probably the most special.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna say.
Is, is he coaching still at Columbia?
I don't think so. I think he did 1 year maybe,
Oh, okay.
and then I think he something maybe got another job, or if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
that's what happened. Um, Femi.
Femi? Yeah, you know, we talked a little bit about him earlier, but again, you know, dominant big man. In this day and age, you don't get many of those type of players anymore. But Femi was the player who could play with his back to the basket, like a true post up center. Like Ryan Bacon, you know, was a big man, but Ryan liked playing with, he could play with his back to the basket, but liked playing face in the basket and athletic. And that was, you know, benefited him and us. But Femi was that true old style big man, post up, give me the ball, jump hook, could rebound, block shots, and like you said, he was an intimidator. You know, he was dominant.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna say a couple names now, and I just kind of need like a story or anything that you can remember, but like what comes to mind with them. Um, I'm gonna start with Ryan Bacon actually.
Yeah. So Ryan Bacon, we're playing in a summer league game at Glenfield Park in Montclair, and Ryan, you know, he was a finesse type player. And again, that's who he was. And I was trying to push him to be more, you know, be more aggressive. And something I said triggered something. But I remember he got the ball on the wing, and he just went right to the basket and two hand, like, I mean, he dunked it with authority. And I kind of think that was the turning point of his career.
Mm.
And now he comes senior year, and as a shot blocker, I never coach. I mean, Femi also, I think both of them, but shot blocker, incredible. And I think his best all around game, if I remember correctly, against Montclair in the semifinal, I think he had 18 rebounds. And I remember he blocked the shot,
I remember it.
Hands. You remember that? It was
I
like,
remember
oh.
that.
And it was like, but you know something about that? And then that obviously puts things in the other team's head. They're not going to the basket. When you block a shot and send it into the third row, you know you're not going to the basket anymore. But yeah, he was by the second half of his junior year through his senior year, he was great. I went on and I watched him and Yvonne play on TV at St.
Yeah,
Peter's in
St. Peter's. That was special. Yeah,
the NCAA tournament. Yeah,
yeah. Both played in the tournament. That was crazy.
yeah.
Yvonne spoke about that. Um, Linden High School.
So we are playing Linden in the state tournament, and that was, our really good team. And we were down by one at halftime. And I remember going in at halftime and going like, we weren't playing well. And I didn't like the way the game was going. And in the third quarter, they took a little bit of a lead. And in the fourth quarter, they ended up winning by 10. But they handled us pretty good. But I remember, like, even when I was at Irvington, going to Linden, it's a basketball world. So now we're scrimmaging them, and there's got to be 200 people in the gym at a scrimmage. This was a couple of years later, and it was crazy. And like our parents and their parents are getting into it, and it's quite an experience. Coaching against Phil at the time, and then playing Linden. So it's always quite an experience playing Linden. But Linden sets the tone for success in high school basketball.
Ashton Gibbs.
Man, we're playing them we're playing them in the county. I guess it was semifinals, and that was again we beat them the first time. They beat us the second time. And Yvonne Raymond steals the ball, dunks it. We're up 6 with 1:50 to go. And Bob Farrell calls timeout. So we're like, listen, we got to keep the ball out of Ashton's hands. We have to. Come out of the timeout. He gets open. We were on him. He drains a 3. Now it's a 3-point game, and it turned on that shot. And then I think he hit another 3 actually somehow. And then ultimately, we're down 1 with about 20 seconds to go. And we're holding the ball for the last shot. We're down 1. And, we had a good look. We just didn't make it. We lost by 1. So Steve Tolbert asked me after the game, just out of curiosity, you held the ball, you were down a point. And you know what I said? Couldn't give the ball back to Ashton. Because I felt like if he had the ball, he was going to score for them. He was one of the best high school players I've ever seen or coached against. And like Reggie Miller, deadly. Like he was good. He was tough. He was legit. And I held the ball down a point because I didn't want to give the ball back to Seton Hall. I didn't want the ball in Ashton's hands.
Okay. I need a couple of players I just need a couple of the top players that you remember coaching against. Like, who was the hardest person? And when you went into practice to prepare, we were playing these guys. Man, all right, we're going to have to put in something special for this kid, or we're going to have to do something. Or explain to me.
Yeah, Ashton is definitely one of them. But what's interesting? Kid from Bloomfield Tech. Now, I was at Montclair at the time, and his name escapes me, actually, but we couldn't stop him, and he killed us the first 2 times we played him. So now we're playing. We played him. One of those weird, like, you play regular season game Thursday, then you got to play him again Saturday in the county tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So we double teamed him. So we told our point guard Sean Smith, whenever this kid crosses half court and gets the ball, just go double him. And we did that, and it worked. We ended up winning the game. And again, it was like risky, but we couldn't stop the kid. And it's amazing that I can't remember the kid's name. But Bloomfield Tech, it was him, certainly Ashton. And this kid, too, from West Mars that gave us fits. I think he wasn't your year. I think he was later on.
Big
but he
kid?
gave us, I can't remember his name,
Was he
but
a
he
big
gave
kid?
us, what's that?
The big man?
Not the big man. He was like a 6'2" kid, good sized kid, but he was a guard, but we couldn't stop the kid for some reason. It's amazing how that can happen too sometimes. Like, you can
Yeah.
like I checked the paper. The kid scored like 8 points, 6 points, and he scores 30. I was like, what the hell? Like, But yeah, it's funny. Unfortunately, these names are escaping me. It's been a long time, but I can picture it too. So, but
All right.
how about you? You want to talk about you a little bit? What a great player you were, because I don't think you give yourself. I know it's your podcast, but besides the fact that you were such a great kid to coach, we call it coachability. And when you give somebody instruction, and you were one of those kids, Eddie, that you gave instruction and you went out and did it and excelled on it. And you were such a clutch player, offensively, defensively. You could handle the ball. You could get to you're underrated too, that you could get to the basket. And you had your funky way of shooting your foul shot, but it was effective.
I'll change that later on in life.
But again, you had one of the greatest performances of all time with your 20-point, fourth quarter, uh, incredible, got us back in the game. But, if I could have five guys like you, we'd always be successful. So,
Well, that's funny because the fourth quarter thing, that was cool. But my favorite game was the Seton Hall game.
oh,
It felt like I just couldn't miss.
great.
I ended up with like 24 or something like that.
You did. And you know something that's interesting? This made me angry, actually. And this is how people, you missed a shot in the fourth quarter, um, maybe at a sort of a crucial time, not at the end of the game, but at some point. And I remember another coach saying to me, man, if Eddie only would have made that one shot, I think that would have iced it. And I was like, that's what you're focusing on? The kid played the game of his life. But that's, again, that's weird how people are. They'll remember maybe the one, you might have been 7 for 8 for 3, but they will remember the one, like, again, it's stupid, like they remember the one miss. But I know who the guy was. I'm not going to say his name. And I remember getting angry at him. And I was like, I said, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I was like, the kid played a great game, and that's what you're going to talk about? Like, and then I walked away from the guy. Like, but I remember that. But yeah, you played great that game.
Yeah. If you could take one, if you could change anything from one of the losses that you had in your career, what would it be?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's funny, like the game where we lost to Seton Hall by 1, where I held the ball down 1, I would have done it again. I actually would have done it again. It's funny because that's one where you could second guess yourself. But I'll tell you another story. We were playing when I was at Irvington, and we're playing Newark East Side, who was number 4 in the state. They had Randy Foy on the team that year.
Mm-hmm.
And we were down. We played a boxing 1 on Randy Foy, and the kid covering him did a great job. I mean, he still scored a couple baskets, but he did a great job. So we're down 2 with, I'm going to say, 2 minutes to go, and they had the ball, and I kept the team back. I held them back, and I said, we're going to run the clock down. And we ran it down to like about 40 seconds, and then we went out on him and played him. And it turned out the kid went to the basket and got fouled, and he made the 2 foul shots and put him up 4. And, a couple of people after the game said, like, you're down 2 with 2 minutes to go, and you're not going out after them. You're playing. But what I was trying to do was keep the game at 1 possession.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hopefully you didn't make a mistake.
right, hoping that they would, maybe force up a shot or miss a shot, we would get the rebound. Or if we fouled them, they would miss the foul shot. It obviously didn't work out. So when I think back, yeah, maybe we should have, something like that. But, but again, if I think back to the way, like, I handled things, we had lost the game once, and kid took a bad shot, and I got on him pretty good after the game. And then I think back and I think that wasn't the right time to get on the kid. You know what I mean? Like, so there's situations like that that come to mind where I think back and, I could have done a better job,
Yeah,
as
I mean, I know like sometimes like especially as a coach, it's like I had to learn that, you actually taught me some of that. I think I don't know if you remember this, but I was coaching JV and the kid was dribbling the ball up the court. We were playing, I think, East Orange. We got up by like one, and he just like drops the ball. Maybe the ball goes off his foot or some crazy. Like the worst time it could happen. Like a couple seconds left, they go down to get a layup and they scored. And I was on the sideline. And I was just like, ah, like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? And you, after the game, I think you put me to the side and you were just like, well, I don't know if you remember this. You was like, you can't do that, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you're coaching, you know what I mean? You can't let them see you, lose control.
Yeah.
And like, and panic like that because then they're going to panic. So,
Oh, yeah, and you know what, Ed? Again, it's from experience because I've done the same thing too, and it's like even give an example like coaching softball, and like the girl like takes the third strike. You're like, this is the coaching, and you got to realize you can't do that. Like and the same thing with basketball. It's hard, and you got to keep your
because there are coaches out there that actually do that shit.
And listen, I am guilty because there's times myself, like I said, I think back to like, I could have handled the situation better. But you know what I've learned too over the many years is, and I think it's not a terrible thing to say to your team, you know what, I made a mistake, and I'm sorry for it. I think one of the things, we learn is, and I think that when you do that with a player, some coaches or some people may feel, you don't want to show a weakness, but I disagree with that. To be able to go up to a player and say, you know what, my mistake. I should have done a better job. And I think it's showing again your players that you're human and you do make mistakes and you're being honest. And I think that in a way, hopefully, will get them to respect you more and say, hey, you know what, he can make mistakes too. So.
Yeah, I mean, so anybody else is listening, any aspiring coaches or anyone's a coach right now, I mean, it's a hard lesson to learn. You know what I mean? You gotta let it just go with it at the time, and at the end of the game, you go on your coaches with your coaches, and that's when you talk about it.
Yeah.
You believe
do
this
it
guy?
behind closed doors. You believe he took that friggin' shot? Yeah, but and another thing too, I think is important is you can never stop learning. Like I mean, I've been doing this for 33 years, and I'm still learning. We're all still learning. So but I think it's good. But you know what? You get kids like him, to coach, and it keeps you in coaching, and it makes it all worthwhile.
Oh, definitely. And to this day, my wife, because I hope she doesn't hear me. Maybe she won't listen to this, but I've even actually taught my wife this. This is a valuable lesson that you taught me one time. You had a camp in the summer just after my senior year, right? And I come in late, right? You hired me to coach there. I mean, to like be a counselor, whatever the case may be. And I'm walking in. You're talking to the team. I mean, to the the kids in the camp. They're all sitting down listening to you. So you're talking to them. You're speaking to them about something. They're all listening to you. In the middle of you talking to them, you turn around. You curse me out. You came in late. That's bullshit. You can't come in late. You got to be here on time every day. This is a job. This is blah 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 blah. And then you turn back around. You're like, yeah. So kids, like I was saying, like like you like. And that actually taught me like I'm on time everything. Like for whatever it is. Especially when I was coaching, I was a big stickler being on time and make sure everybody's there on time. We didn't actually have that rule before you got there. So, that's something. And then I've applied that to everything I've done in life, no matter what it is, being on time is something that you can control, whether it's, if you're going to work or whatever you're doing. I always teach my kids that. And, oddly enough, I actually had some parents challenge me on that, but
You know what's interesting? Like again, all that I've learned this all too myself, from experience. And one of the things I learned as a young coach, Greg Butler, who is now the athletic director at Demers, taught me. I was his assistant. He goes, "You can't require something from a player if you're not going to do it yourself. If you're not to practice early, how are you going to hold somebody else accountable? If you're not prepared for practice, how are you going to hold the players accountable?" So every day when I go into practice, I have my practice plan. I put it on the wall. This is what we're going to do. And I want them to know, really, it's more for them to know that I sat and thought about practice and prepared it. Not that I showed up and say, let's do this now, let's do this now. And again, I don't think, and I think you know this too, I think nothing replaces preparation. If you're prepared as a teacher, I go into the classroom and I have to be prepared to teach the lesson. As a coach, you go into a game or you go into a practice, you have to be prepared. If you're not prepared, you can't do things off the fly. It doesn't work. Like it doesn't add up to success. So I mean that's one of the things I hopefully would try to teach. Be prepared.
Most definitely, man. Like being a leader of young men is very like it's a hard thing to do, but it's also kind of like an easy thing to do, right? Because if you do everything you're supposed to do, nobody wins every game. Nobody makes all the right decisions all the time.
Right.
But like if you're on time and you work hard, and they see you doing that, then that's kind of like the biggest lesson, that they can learn, you know, as far as applying that to their life. I mean, I know I did. I've been successful in some things, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been successful without learning that stuff from you.
Well,
So
I
actually,
appreciate that, but I want you to know too that I learned it from somebody. You know what I mean? It's been passed down. So and I hope you get back into coaching because they need people like you, and kids need people like you, and you'll teach those. And you know what, coach, 20 years down the road, somebody's going to be telling you the same thing. Like I learned this from you, and it's true. And I use this simple line to the players that I coach, and I say, no one's going to ask anything out of you other than you do your best. And I believe that if you do your best, can't ask for anything else. If you give 100%, what else can you ask for? No one can ask you anything more than that. So, as an athlete, as a coach, as a father, as a friend, just do give 100%. I think that's all anybody can ask. So,
absolutely. Now, can you give me three of the top guards from that you've coached, that you've seen from Columbia?
I'm not going to do that because I'm gonna let whoever's watching make that decision, and you and your friends can talk about it. But because I think it's unfair because it's hard. You can't do it. It's unfair to do. You know. I know. Listen, I'm taking the easy way out. I know it. This is
All right.
you going, you want to run a suicide or you want to go sit in the stands? And I'm going to sit in the stands. I know.
All right. Well, can you give me all right, give me this. Can you give me your top three like games that you remember off the top of your head? Like, okay, these are the three most special games, or maybe that I can come up with right now.
Yeah, well, I think beating Elizabeth in the state tournament is definitely one. I
Hmm.
think it's funny because your year it's Seton Hall and it's Morristown. One was a loss, so I'll take what I mean. That was just an electric night, like what I mean. So
Yeah,
I'll take I'll take the Morristown game, and then we beat Seton Hall in the in the tip-off classic, you know. So I would include that as well.
I would have thought that would have been your number one.
I mean, listen, let's be honest, and you were lucky enough to do it too. But I think my career record again, I was 8 years at Columbia, so at Seton Hall twice a year and once in the counties. And then I played them once in the counties when I was at Irvington. So I think I'm like 1 in freaking 19 against Seton Hall prep. So, listen, beating Seton Hall prep was, obviously a tremendous win. And it's funny, one year at Demarest, we beat Wayne Hills. Wayne Hills was the best team in the league, and we were down 19-2 in the first quarter. We came back and beat them, and that was a great win. And then at Montclair, we went to Bergen Catholic and we beat Bergen Catholic at Bergen Catholic, which was a great win.
Really?
Then at Columbia, we beat Irvington in the county tournament. I think it was after they beat us in the state tournament. I think it was the next year we played them in the counties, and they were up 25-10.
I remember that game. Yeah.
And we came back and beat them. They had a real good point guard. His name was Mike something.
I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember his name, but yeah, we were down 25-10, and we came back and beat them. So that was also that was a great win.
Okay. All right. Now I just need a story off the court. Like, give me 2 stories that you can remember that was off the court, not a basketball. Well, it could be a basketball thing, but it was off the court, like a funny story. Coach Scott, anything.
Oh, Coach Scott, he was the man. Well, I'll tell you, I'll tell you one story. We were playing at East Orange, and I had drove there for some reason, and I was walking. So I leave the gym, and I couldn't find my car. I forgot where So I'm walking around looking for my car, and I run into a guy, and he's like, "Can I help you?" And obviously I'm walking around East Orange. It's like 10:30 at night. I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm looking for my car." He's like, not understanding. I said, "Oh, I just coached the basketball." Oh, you're the Columbia coach. Oh, okay. And then we start talking about the game. It was hysterical. We're sitting there. He was at the game, and but he had since gone home. And I don't know, because this is like 15 minutes after the game. We sat outside talking about the game for like 15 minutes. It was great. Like, we were just, oh yeah, it was so funny. And I don't know why that just popped into my head, but I remember that story. Like, some guy.
Did you ever find your car?
Oh, I eventually found my car. He's like, I'll walk with you. So we were walking as we were talking, and I was like, I think it was this street. I mean, because there was no parking. I think they had closed the parking lot for something, and we had to park on the street somewhere. So, and I was like, where the hell did I park? So I don't know if that's any good, but let me think of another story off the court. It's funny, like the Mrs. Glynn writing me the letter. I mean, it's basketball related, but writing me the letter about how her son was the only one still playing basketball, and he's the only one that went to a public school, maybe has, I don't know, maybe a little bit of an impact on me. But, I'm trying to think of stories, like after games and, going into, after you win and you go out to eat somewhere and then you run into people and they're like, oh, like, great game. And it's just the greatest feeling.
Yeah.
It's funny. And you've experienced this too. And it's hard, like, for people who don't coach to understand it. But the highs and lows of winning and losing, isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
When you win, the world is a great place. Your food tastes great. And then when you lose, it's like,
I remember you told me a story one time. You were trying to explain to us, like, we're in high school, so
yeah,
we have girlfriends and stuff like that, but, we don't know about being married or anything like that.
Yeah.
And you told us a story one time, and you were like, listen, when we lose, he was like, it hurts me too. He's like, nobody understands this. He was like, I go home, I see my wife. She's like, how's the game? And I'm like, we lost. And she's like, oh, that's great. Well, we need milk, we need sugar, we need this.
It's so true. It's so true. Hold on a second. My wife, she'd get a kick out of that. She's actually in the other room. But that is so true. Like, how'd you do? We lost. And then she wants to tell me some story that at that point, there was no interest in. We just lost. We just lost by a point to see it all. Right?
That story and the story you told me about, I think you were going to, that you were, I don't know, you were going back to school for something, I think at the time, and you were like, we had a tough loss to somebody, and I just remember, I think maybe you had to go to class after that or something like that.
Oh God.
He told me, he was like, I'm sitting in class, and I think we just lost to Seton Hall or something.
Oh
And
my
he's like, and I'm
God.
just like, what the hell am I doing here? I
Oh
can't
my
even
God.
concentrate.
I know exactly what it was. It was amazing. It was actually, I was at Irvington at the time, and we were in the state sectional semifinals, and we just lost on an awful shot, a terrible, way it ended. And then I had to go to graduate school, and I never forget it. I'm sitting in it going, what am I doing? We just lost. I just lost the state tournament. Like, and I'm sitting in class going, what am I doing? Oh yeah. People who say like, oh, I don't take it home with me. Nah.
Yeah,
You're not coaching.
yeah. It got some like so bad for me, like, again, like, this is me 26, 27 years old, I'm pissed off not losing video games. So like
Yeah.
when I'm these,
Um,
so when I would lose, like sometimes I don't even think you're probably the first person I ever told this. Like I know when we lost to Irvington in the semifinals, my first year coaching there, the county tournament, we were up like 16 points. I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, shit, we're getting ready to go to the county final.
yeah, I know.
First year. And then they come back and they beat us.
Yeah.
Right? It was like 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I went home, went to sleep. I couldn't even like that was the only thing I could think of to like get me to not jump off the cliff. Probably was I just went home and I just slept. And I don't know if you noticed actually, probably because sometimes like with coaching, right? Some people don't know everything that goes into like
No idea.
coaching or even into a game, right? So I was kind of getting like a pressure that game, right? To there was a new kid that came, right? From New York. And it was like highly regarded. He was very popular. He was like the kid named Eunice Hopkinson. Was one of the best players, I think, in his year coming out of New York City. Happened to move to South Orange. And one of the parents, I believe, or the parents, somebody was blocking this kid from even getting into the school. Like, it was crazy. I've never seen anything like this before. Like, maybe with South Orange, they have their, their ways sometimes, but I've never seen anybody getting blocked to be in the school. So it had to be like an inside type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I got, other people, like, you got to play this kid. This is his first game. Now, this is the county. I don't want his first game to be the semifinals, right?
Yeah.
So, so it's like I got people I'm not going to tell you who was in my ear. And, there were from both sides. Like, you can't play this kid. You can play this kid. You can't play this kid. If you don't play this kid, you're crazy. And we're having a great year that year, right? We're like top 12 in the state.
I remember that, yeah.
So I'm like, I'm talking to my coaches. I'm like, yo, bro, I don't know. To get to the story sometimes it takes me a long time to get because certain things go in my head.
Yeah.
I have this skill, right, of being able to play 15, 14 people in a game because when I started coaching JV, the first thing you said to me was that you got to play everybody.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then he shouldn't be on the team.
Yeah.
If he can't even get in the game, then don't put him on the team.
Yeah.
So I had to learn ways to, even kids that weren't that good, to throw them in so they won't hurt us and put them in position not to hurt us.
Right.
So I had to learn how to play. And so that was a skill I had with me. I'm like, I could pretty much damn near almost keep everybody happy because I can play everybody in my roster. That's what I'm used to. I've done it for 3 years when I was coach, or 4 years, or whatever the case may be, right? So I put him in the game. I'm like, listen, he's going to go in. Just don't hurt us. I'm thinking in my head, and then the worst thing that could possibly happen. And then I'm going to go back to my regular rotation. I'm going to say, listen, I'm explaining to the kid, look, we got to ease you in. This isn't the right game to do it, So, and then I'm just going to go back to my regular rotation. I come in, the kid comes in, hits 3 straight threes. So this kid has all the hype. The newspaper even puts it in there. It's like they got Eunice Hopkinson coming from New York, you know, he's coming in, he's gonna play this game, this, that. So now I gotta play him. But you know, I
Yeah.
know how to do that. So I'm
Yeah.
like, you know, I'm gonna throw him. So I'll come in, the kid comes in, hits a three, comes back down, hits a three, comes in, doesn't even know the plays, comes in, hits another three. So I can't even use that as an excuse. I'm like, damn. I'm like, so
Yeah.
now that really hurt me. So now I don't really know what to do, right? So now I'm like, well, I like an idiot if I take him out. If I play him, it might hurt the chemistry a little bit. And
Yeah.
he's going to take playing time, you know, someone who helped us get there to where we are.
Yeah.
And it was just like the weirdest thing. And I didn't really know. Like that was the only time in coaching I really didn't know what to do because, you know, instead of doing what I've been taught, which is, you know, follow my heart and just do what I need to do, you know, I was kind of worried about the feedback from both sides. And, you know, he comes in and he does too well. So, you know, it kind of ruined my plans. And then I was like, I had to play him. And then I overplayed him. And then it was like, you know, that's the type of stuff that
funny
people wouldn't know.
because yeah, and it's another thing you learn too, and it's not easy to do. Like is to coach like with blinders because all of a sudden across the gym you see somebody, you know, you see Mr. So and so, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it's human nature. Again, it's impossible to do. You know, and again, it's hard because they are in your ear, and you know, like I said, it's never going to end. And no matter how many years, you know, you coach, it's never going to end. It's just, you know, it's hard to do.
Yeah,
But,
I want to.
you
I
know,
remind me when we start recording, please. I don't want to share the story on,
yeah, I hear you.
but I have to tell you about this story.
Okay.
Um, but off of that, now I just need who's the most surprising player, like as far as you got a kid or you know a kid maybe his freshman sophomore year wasn't that good or maybe a kid that you just originally didn't think was that good and then all of
Yeah,
a sudden the
you
season.
know, it's funny because I think that's Namdi Ike. Like, I think like his freshman year, I think he was like the 10th player on the freshman team, and sophomore year, he played JV, and you know, again, he was a 6 foot kid who wasn't a great shooter. He's not real, and he's a good inside player, but he's 6 feet tall. And then, man, his junior year, he started to come along, and you know, we'll talk about that thing off here, but and then senior year he exploded. I think that might be the kid who is one of those kids where he uses an example is, you know, just kept getting better, kept getting better, kept getting better. And on a shorter scale, I think Matt Stevens, like I think like his senior year, you know, he was going to be our starting point guard, and we were like, okay. And then he ended up coming out of the lineup. He didn't have a good stretch, and then at the end of the season, he played great. And he's, you know, a big reason why we beat Elizabeth. And you know, so kudos to that kid who never gave up on himself. You know, I mean, sometimes kids can give up on themselves. And listen, as a coach, we take you out of the lineup, and you know, of course, you hear from the parent that, you know, we ruined a kid for life because he loves basketball, and it's our fault that he hates basketball now. You know,
Yeah.
but to that kid's credit, he never give up. So, but I think back to the original question, I think it's probably Namdi.
All right. And is there a player that you would say like like you wish like or not even you wish but like is there a player that for instance was kind of like um a player that you think maybe you could have used differently or possibly.
Yeah, I do actually. We had Ryan's counterpart, Ethan. Like, and I think back, and I didn't use him enough, and I didn't use him the right way, and I should have used him as a compliment to Ryan instead of, you know, using him maybe as a sub for Ryan. I could have used him more. And we lost to East Orange the second time we played him, and that was our really good year. The year we went to the county finals. We lost 58-55, and I'll tell you a quick side story. Rotimi caught the ball popped, hit a three, and would have tied the game with like a second or two to go, and they called a travel on. You know that, like when you catch the ball and you hop, and it's like a 50-50.
Yeah.
Some refs will call travel and some don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Travel on him. And then of course, it was only a couple seconds left. We ended up losing. But I didn't use Ethan the whole second half of the game. And they had a kid, Stanley. Was it Stanley Harris?
Stanley Harris, yeah.
Tough. He was big, good, big kid. And when I think back, I talked to Ethan about it, and I was like, I should. The point being, I should have used. That's the one kid I think of right away that I should have used him more and should have used him better. I should have went with the Twin Towers with Ryan and him more than just using maybe one. But with that team, we had really good guards, and it was trying to find playing time, like you just said. You did a better job of it than I did, trying to find playing time. But I probably, looking back, certainly in the East Orange game, but there was other times I probably should have went with that bigger lineup.
Okay. Just two more questions, Coach, and I promise we're done.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love this talking about,
I just want to know, what was the hardest decision you had to make as a coach?
Well, leaving Columbia was really hard. I loved it there. And you know what? Honestly, again, I felt like it was just time for me to go. I felt like it was your time to move up. There were some parents that weren't happy. We were 13 and 14, my life. It was the only year that I was there that we weren't above 500, interestingly enough. And I remember we had beaten Piscataway in the first round of the state tournament. And then we lost to Plainfield in the second round of the state tournament. And I just felt like, I guess it was just time for me to move on. I mean, the ride was an hour ride from my house. And I guess it was kind of time for me to go. But I went back and forth on it a lot. I mean, I even met with the athletic director and the principal. And again, both of them were like, no, stay. And I was like, I think it's time for me to go. I mean, I was there 8 years. So that was a really hard decision for me. That was one of my toughest decisions. And, Coach, and this too, it's like, when you have to make a decision on cutting kids, I always say this is the hardest thing in coaching. Great kid, works hard, you know what I mean? A kid you want to keep on the team, but there's just no room for him. So if I had to answer that question, specifically, I would say it's the cutting of, unfortunately, some really good kids. And this too. At Columbia, we cut some decent players, because, there's a lot of, some years were really good, but,
And the last question is, I just need that other coach that you just hated coaching against. It was like a thorn in your side, or it was like he's always throwing something off or throwing something at you that you.
Yep. East side coaches. They always, I could never figure them out. And like we beat them once in this when I was at the Watch on Irvington, and we beat them, but they just seem to always have listen, I told you we were 1-18 against Seton Hall, and again, this is no disrespect to Farrell, the guys 700 or 800 wins, but they were just better than us, I think. You know what I mean? East side was always tough. Those two guys, Anthony and Brian, were great. They're great coaches, and I couldn't figure them out.
Yeah, one coach I just hated when I saw them on the schedule. I just hated playing them, man. And they always gave us a hard time, even when we were better than them or when we was top ranked. They found a way to always split with us or beat us. And that was just Pat. I can't remember his name. He's at Bloomfield.
Oh, Pat Bruder?
Yeah. I just can never. Yeah. He just knew. I mean, I kind of wanted to ask him one day. It was just he knew. I think I would look over there and I kind of would see a smirk. He knew how to beat me, so I just wanted to ask him what did you know that I didn't? What did you see that I didn't see? Because I always know that you felt confident that you can beat me. Like,
Let me tell you something about Pat Bruner. It was interesting because Pat, like, here's the top coaches at Seaside. It's Pat Bruner is one of them too. Um, we put in a new we put in a new offense at Montclair. We call it Circle. Actually, Pinto brought it. So we're gonna call out the play, and he's yelling from the sideline. They're running circle. I was like, this freaking guy's calling out the offense before we even got before we even got into it. He knew. No, Pat was one of those coaches. Again, you know why? Because he scouted you, and he paid attention, and he knew. Like, he was very difficult to coach against. And I'll tell you something else too. The guy, he's now the athletic director at Livingston, Cohen. Livingston, nightmare for us to play. When we were at Columbia too, with even the coach before him, I mean, it's funny because they were always a nightmare to play. You know, they ran that Princeton offense.
yeah, exactly.
And like I hated playing them. And we won. I mean, we played them 10 times. I think we won 9 out of 10. But it was always a nightmare playing them.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I fear those games, man. Like,
Oh, God.
I was actually kind of happy when we went to the Essex County because you're gonna see one style the whole time, except for the Super Bowl. You're gonna see one style the whole year.
Yeah.
Except for when you get to the States, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the coach from Ridge, I don't even know his name, man. I never beat him. He knocked me out. I was there 4 years. He's knocked me out twice.
Oh, Mark.
We were the higher seed every time. I believe.
I think he went to. Then he ended up going to like St. Benedict's or something like that. I think.
No, he's still there. We played them at Linden.
Oh, the coach after that guy. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we played him at Linden this past year, and we beat him by 1. He had a shot to win. The guy missed a layup at a buzzer to beat us. So, I mean, I don't know what it is. Those guys, they just knew how to beat me. They knew how.
Well, you know what's funny? You say that because both guys at Livingston that I coached against when I was at Columbia and then later at Montclair, and they never had a ton of talent, but they were great coaches. And you know what's sad about that, Coach? You know, I leave Columbia with a really good record, but I had really good players, like, you know.
Yeah.
And those guys at Livingston were great coaches, and their records probably aren't great, but it's, again, the record is sort of in a weird way overrated because they were great coaches. They just didn't have, I mean, we just had talent. We were just better than them, Columbia. Like, we were just better.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, you know, it was funny. One year, we opened up at Livingston, and me and Pinto, you must have been coaching JV at the time because we were cracked. They pressed us. Do you remember that? They came out pressing us. And we ended up winning like 95-55. And then after the game, Pinto says to the coach, like, Coach, I got to ask you, like, what are you thinking? And he's like, you know what? He goes, I'm sick of the parents. He goes, they always complain about the style of basketball we play. So, you know, they're saying, why don't you press? He goes, okay, we'll press Columbia. Let's see how that works out. And Jameel, you're going to press Jameel Grace. Okay, yeah. So funny. In the meantime, we would beat them like 35-32, 40-36, you know, great games, but, you know, and then they decide to press us and we win by 40. So, it was, you know.
How's the style of basketball up in Maine?
In Maine? Like Livingston. Here's what I said in my interview. I was a varsity assistant last year for a guy, Zach, at this school in Massapequa, and it was great. He was like you, young, you know, learning, he played in college, you know, a lot like you. Very fundamentally sound, believe in fundamentals. But what I learned is that Mainers, they run a lot of pattern stuff and they shoot a lot of threes. Like, you know what I mean? It's, you know, how do I say this, you know, the right way? It's suburban basketball at its best.
I was about to ask you, is there like an inner city team that's like?
Well, you have, Maine is not very diverse when it comes to race. There's a Lewiston, Maine, where their basketball team is you know, pretty diverse, and then there's Portland, Maine. Portland's our largest city, and that's relatively diverse, their basketball team. But other than that, no, not a lot of diversity in Maine.
Okay.
Let me tell you something, Eddie. It ain't Essex County. That's what And it's funny too because I have to adapt myself as a coach because you're playing. Here's your league. You know this. You're playing University. You're playing Central. You're playing Barringer. You're playing Columbia. You're playing all these inner city teams that are up and down the floor. You know, where it's a different brand of basketball.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. It'd probably be a nightmare for me because those teams, those backdoor, I call them backdoor teams, backdoor
That's
teams,
that's what
Princeton
it is.
offense teams,
That's what it is. Yeah,
Um,
it's a lot of Hoosiers.
you know,
Four passes, four passes.
it's kind of funny. I remember the first time you were making like the first year you coached us, you were making like some comments about Seton Hall, right? I can't remember what they were, but they were kind of like to the effect of kind of basically not I want to say underestimating them, but I
Oh
don't think
yeah,
you thought they were that good.
you're correct. I didn't realize and it's funny because we still talk about it. Like you remember playing Seton Hall Prep, you turn the ball over, you're dead.
Yeah,
It's going to cost you. You give them you give them a second shot, you're dead. They'll kill you. And
yeah,
Seton Hall is classic. Straight half court man to man. They're up 16-11 at the end of the first quarter. Then it's 33-20. Then next thing you know, it's 50-30. And they're like, how am I down 20?
yeah.
What's happening? They're not pressing, they're not trapping, but you're down 20.
Exactly. It doesn't fit. It's like a slow death.
Oh, it's exactly what it is. Yeah, because they do their thing. Now again, it's hard because they're
You know,
great.
when we first came, right? When you first came, that Seton Hall team is a little and up until I don't know when it changed. Honestly, Farrell was still there, I believe, when it still
Yeah,
changed. But even when I coached against them, they weren't the same Seton Hall that we played.
they
Like
were not.
when we played Seton Hall, we was getting backdoored, screen like
Yeah,
it was almost unstoppable. Like the flex, like
yeah,
there's nothing you could do to. And then
yeah,
at some point, it was kind of like they came more of a. It's kind of like Krzyzewski. At first he didn't want to do any one and dones.
yeah.
And then he was like, well, look, I got to compete with Kentucky, so I started getting the
Exactly.
one and dones and
Yeah.
no more flex for them, no more.
I,
So
I think you're right. You know what? I'm wondering if that kind of drove Farrell's like I can't coach that way, and I wonder if that's what maybe. I mean, maybe not, but I'm thinking that's the same way. You know something? I had my style of coaching, and when I went to Irvington, before I came to you guys, you know what? You gotta adapt to your players, and that's one of the things I learned as a young coach. You have your way and you have your philosophy, and I do.
mm,
But when I got a kid like Eddie Turner, I got to let him shoot the ball. Now it's funny because here I am at York and I'm watching them play in the fall league, and there's a kid who's he's like you. He's got great range and he can hit threes. And I don't like that. I like going to the basket. I like taking I don't want to win a game by shooting threes because I think when you win by the three, you die by the three.
talk about 3, yeah.
And but I'm gonna have to let this kid go because he can hit 400 rounds.
Yeah,
And you
explain
gotta
to
let him
me
shoot. You
kind of
know.
how that is, right? Because everybody doesn't understand. Like, it's you got to be everything on a basketball court isn't equal, right?
Yeah,
So, in for instance, if a kid on the team comes down, he can't do this. You see Jamil doing it,
yeah,
and then he does it, and you're like, "What the hell are you doing?" He's like, "Man, he did it. Why didn't you
I
say give it
know.
him?" Because he makes those.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean?
funny you say that because they're talking to the Utah coach. What was his name? Heavy guy. He's not coaching here anymore, but he doesn't allow his kids to wear earrings. And one of the players said, "Well, Michael Jordan wears an earring." So he goes, "Well, when Michael Jordan comes here, you ain't Michael Jordan." And when
Mm,
John Stockton would dribble down and throw the shuffle pass, or Steve Nash, I hate that pass, passing off the dribble. And I brought that up. Like we don't pass off the dribble. because when you pass off the dribble, you can't stop the pass. Well, Steve Nash does it. Well, shit, if Steve Nash was here, and what would he say? You ain't Steve Nash, like, you know. Steve Nash does it. Oh, okay.
That's funny you say that, because Rodney was on here my first episode. He brought up a story. He was like, yeah, you know, my senior year, I was playing. We played an open gym, I guess, that you directed or something like that. It was kind of like a practice, but it was really like, that wasn't a practice, but it was only players. It was open gym, but it was only players. It wasn't like anybody from the outside. It was
Is
only
this
players from the
against
team.
when I did it with you, Montclair and Columbia?
No. This is when you were coaching our first year.
Oh,
The
oh,
first
oh,
year.
oh, 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 okay.
So like, it was like only, it was an open gym, but it wasn't like for everybody. It was just
Right,
for
right,
players,
right.
I guess. So we're doing that. Uh, and he said he threw a behind the back pass. And he said you stopped him. It was like, well, we don't throw behind the back passes here. And he was like, I knew that's when I had to transfer.
Oh, is that right? Oh shit! So I drove Rodney out. Man. Yeah, to this day, I don't like the behind the back pass, coach. I just, God.
Just so you know, I you know, installed the same rule.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it looks pretty, and if it works, you know, it's wonderful. But 7 out of 10 times, it's not going to work. So
Well,
we're scouting actually university, and it was actually me and Pinto, and I was at Montclair. There's a couple of players were there too. Were off that day, or something happened. Maybe we practiced after school. They were playing at night, and one of your kids came down and tried to throw a pass like under his leg, like lifted his leg up, like tried to throw and hit off his leg and rolled out of bounds. And I'm going to myself, man, like, and then he went down and played defense. And again, I don't coach somebody else's team.
yeah.
So a couple of my players, Isaiah Jennings being one of them, turns and looks at me and he was like, I was like, you know, you'd be coming out. He goes, oh, no, we know that. But I felt kind of good in a way. Like they saw that right away. They looked and they realized that. Like, and I was just like, how is that allowable? But again, I only coach my team. You know what I mean? So.
Well, I mean, the behind the back pass is kind of like, I've never seen anybody who can consistently make that a good pass. You know what I mean? So the people that attempt it are never good enough to execute it.
Well, let me ask you this question. Do you remember Golden State playing in the NBA Finals and what's his
Steph
name?
Curry threw the ball out of bounds.
Out of bounds behind his back. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Now, you ain't taking Steph Curry out of the game. Come on. I understand that.
But people still talk about that, though.
Oh my God! I was like, I gotta get a copy of that. I'm sure I could find it on YouTube because I you know, look at this. Do the ball out of bounds.
And this was like Game 7.
Game 7 in a crucial moment.
Crucial, like last 2 minutes tied ball game.
He threw the fucking ball out of bounds. Sorry, excuse me. He threw the friggin' ball out of bounds. Oh God! Yeah, throw the ball behind your back.
Yeah, that's. I mean, honestly, that's. Just, it's like I never allowed that. I'm just, you know, it's kind of like, you know how you have high quality shots.
Yeah.
You know, even like that's like a low quality pass. Like, you know, you just don't find anybody that can execute. Like, you know, you have some. Maybe Jamil might have been able to. He was a great passer.
Yeah.
But I didn't even really see him, even outside of Columbia. I never saw him throwing behind the back passes. Like,
he was a great player, but he at least respected it enough that, you know, it's funny. We were at Montclair and Isaiah and Talib, you know, Talib was crazy athletic, so they make a steal. They're coming down on a fast break, and Isaiah throws a little alley-oop, and Talib dunks it, and Pinto turns to me right away. Let it go. It's okay. Let it go. Like, because he knew I was going to be like, we don't throw alley. So to be totally transparent, coach, I gave in a little bit. Like, I was like, all right, what am I going to do? Like, you know what I mean? It was, you know.
Well, alley-oop is actually something different. If you can execute an alley-oop, that's actually a very high, like, that's a higher percentage that, you know, in high school, not too many people can do that. You know,
Oh
some
yeah, no,
people just to
and
show off.
those two could do it. Like,
Yeah,
and so
but if you can
I
like,
let it go, and I just said to them after the game, I was like, it's fine, but just make sure it works. Like, don't be trying to do it through traffic, and you know what I mean, like that.
yeah,
Kind of stuff. But no, they came down on a 2-on-0, and he just tossed the ball up. I mean, it was harmless, and you know, obviously the crowd liked it. It's funny, coach. Before anything, Pinto turned to me right away. It's all right. Let it go. Don't say anything. I was like, I'm not gonna say anything, and it was like, no, you are. This is us during the game. You were gonna say something. I was like, no, I wasn't. It's all right. But anyway, you know, you have to adapt to the times. Like, you know, like even Bobby Knight, like, you know, had to understand. Like, listen, I'm an old school guy, but you know, you got to adapt as a coach. Like I said, you never stop learning. You know, but anyway.
yeah. All right,
Well,
coach.
this is
Well, I don't
great.
want to keep.
We've been doing this for 2+ hours. This is awesome.
Yeah, I was about to look at the time. I was like, oh, what did I wow.
Yeah.
I don't want to
No,
keep you too
I'm
long,
glad.
man.
I'm glad we did this. I had a great time talking to you. It was great to see you again, by the way.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on. Everybody is gonna be, you know, everybody wants to hear from you. You know,
Yeah,
nobody knows that you're way up there in West.
in Maine.
Man, that's a.
Let me ask
And
you a
I used to think where
question.
you lived before was kind of
Yeah. Oh,
secluded.
yeah, yeah. Remember you guys came up to my house for a picnic. You were like, "Damn, this is how far you drive every day to like." I was like, "Yes." You thought I was living in a sticks den. Look at my backyard.
I'm looking at it. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't see another house back there.
Nah, it's a lot of woods. Yeah, Maine is. Yeah, but anyway, is there any way like Coach Pace wanted to know if he could see this? Is there any way like?
Yeah, I'm gonna edit it. I'm gonna put clips out. I mean, I put the whole thing on YouTube. I put everybody's
Oh,
on
good,
YouTube.
good, good.
So yeah, if you want, you know, I can send you my link and you can go see all the videos. It's all Columbia related. So
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
yeah,
All
I
right,
just kind
sweet.
of want to do like a Columbia history thing. Without you,
Yeah,
it
this
just
is
doesn't make
awesome.
sense. I had to have you. You know, maybe one day I could have Billy. Can you tell that story one time for me, please? About when you came in for to be the new coach of Bailey.
I had to, I had to go sit and be blessed. Like, yeah, I had to. Actually, Rodney was sitting he was sitting up there too. He had to go see Bailey for something else. I guess he did something in school or whatever, Coach Bailey. But I mean, it was not. I mean, he was fine. He just wanted to, you know, have his input, you know, and talk to me. You know, when coaches leave, they like to give their input. So he gave his input, and you know, it
Can
was
you share what
respectful.
his input was?
I think he was just, you know, again, it was a long time ago, but I think he was just kind of giving me a breakdown of probably the main players and you know who they were and maybe what their strengths and weaknesses were. And you know, again, it was fine. I mean, but you know, I also believe too, and you know, you want to start with a clean slate because he might say, well, this player he might not have had a great relationship with, but that's nothing to me. Like when I come in, you know, clean slate and everybody starts from here and you know, let's go. But
Yeah.
it was kind of interesting. I just remember sitting there like I was a kid, like I was ready to go see the dean or whatever. Like, and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah,
But it
man.
was
Before
fine.
you came, it was
His intentions were positive, like it were well meaning. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, Corey. Before you came, the program was probably like a loose cannon, man. Like I've never seen. If you wouldn't believe you had to listen to the other uh people in the podcast and stuff like that to actually even believe some of the stuff we used to do. Like some of the, I remember one time you told me that, you know, Davis came up to you, goes, Davis, he was with us too, right? So Davis came up to talk to the players about something. I don't want to get into what he was saying. You were just like, oh, okay, that's enough. But
Oh
coach,
my
I
God. You
mean,
know
like,
what? That might have been the most uncomfortable moment of my coaching career when he was going to give them a talk about, I'll say this very gently, the birds and the bees, but it was like, oh, you know the expression OMG? That's when it started. OMFG. Like, I was like, all right, we got to end this. I mean, it was, again, I it was his intentions were well meaning, I believe, but Jesus. But yeah.
Believe it or not, before you came there, that's how Bailey was. He's exactly how Bailey was.
Wow.
So him, Bailey together, and then we had another coach named Chap. Like it was, you wouldn't believe. Like that was nothing. What you said, I believed because I was just laughing. But that was the norm every day with those guys. Like,
I don't think he was a big fan of mine either, actually. So I heard some
Coach, listen, man. I had Justin Martin on the other day, and I was talking to him, and I was like, look, tell me something that that I wouldn't know about, the team I coached with you on it. And he was like, a lot of the people didn't like you.
Is that what he said? Are we still on the air, by the way?
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Funny to me. I mean, I was like, tell me something I don't know, right? Because I don't really care. Like, you know what I mean?
I think his mother hated me, actually.
But it's funny, right? It's like if you can't deal with that type of stuff, you can't coach. If you can actually,
you got to be
right, you'll be terrible. You try to get everybody to like you, you know what I mean? But unfortunately, they don't judge us by that. They're going to look at your record, and they're not going to look at how many people like you.
You know what's funny, Coach? When I was at Demorest, I had a parent that definitely didn't like me, and it wasn't good. And it's amazing because I see him. I still see him actually when I was still living down there. I would see him from time to time, and he learned he was so nice to me. And after many years later, he came and watched us play a couple of times. Columbia, when we would go summer league at FDU, all of a sudden I'd see him there, and I think he realized later that we like all of us, our intentions are well-meaning, and we're trying to do the best that we can, and it's never personal. We don't not play a kid because we don't like him. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's hard for parents to accept that too. I'm not playing Jameel because I like Jameel better than your son. I'm playing Jameel because he's freaking good.
I played kids I didn't like.
Of course, we all did.
I mean, listen, Coach, I don't know, I know me personally, I'll tell you, I don't like certain kids, honestly, or I didn't like certain kids either. And I played them. I don't care. Yeah. I'm trying to win. I don't give it. It makes me look stupid if I got somebody on the bench that I know is better.
There's no doubt about it, Coach. I'm not playing a kid because I don't like his parent, or I'm not playing a kid because I don't like him, or I'm not playing him because I like him or his parents. I can't play you because you're this. Listen, this is my first day speech to the kids. You're not making a team because your father's a doctor. You're not getting a starting because your father's or your parents are, on the mayor or an elected official. That's not how it works. You know what I mean? Sometimes it appears that way, but it's not. I've never done.
I had a guy once send me not a threatening text message, but it was kind of I'd ignored him. Because I used to have the weirdest stuff happen to me. I think it was because I was younger. They wouldn't definitely. I know for a fact they wouldn't have done it to you. I know that. So that's why I just ignored it. I had a guy walking in practice I've never seen before, and wanted to install a defense. He wasn't even a parent. He just walked in. He's like, "Yeah, can I talk to you for a second?" I think you guys would be better served if you were to do this. I'm like, who the hell? Who are you? You know what I mean? So. And then one day, we lose. I think maybe I said something in the locker room. His kids, told him I said something in the locker room, maybe, and he didn't like it. Sent me a text message, you're the problem. It's not the kids. You said this, or this, that, and the third. You're the person who's not that good. And I went to one of your practices, and I've seen this, blah, 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 and this, and this, that, and the third, right? So, and I've been ignoring this person because this person always tried to tell me what to do, right? He was always like, listen, you should do this, you should do that. And he's like, maybe you should listen to me instead of being so arrogant. Oh, I'm arrogant because I don't want to listen to you, right? So I'm okay. So I get the text message. I call him. I'm like, all right, so what's the problem? He was like, oh, I'm sorry, man. I had my medication. I just wasn't, I didn't take my medication yet. And I'm like, just hung up the phone. I'm like, what?
Oh my God.
I'm like, you just sent that 2 minutes ago. Now all of a sudden you're sorry and you didn't have your medication. I'm like, what the hell are you
You know what?
talking?
It's funny, Coach, because it's again, it's amazing. Like everybody thinks they can do this job. Like they don't realize when you come to a game and you're sitting in the stands and you're making decisions on what should be going on the court, and you're not at practice every day and you don't deal with the chemistry issue and the attitude of the kids, and one day, again, I don't want to blast anybody, but one day, one of the players at Columbia is like, I don't feel like practicing today. What am I supposed to say? You're one of the main players on the team. What am I supposed? Okay, go sit on the. You know what I mean? Like it's stuff like that. Like you don't realize, like you don't realize how hard it is. Dealing with teenagers,
Yeah,
dealing with and the issues these kids have at home. Some of them coming from broken homes and problems they have. It was the issues you deal with, not just inner city kids, any kid. A kid from a good suburban home can have problems at home too.
yeah,
It's all over. It's so easy to sit in the friggin' stands and coach. It's so easy. It's easy for me to sit on my couch on Sunday afternoon and watch a football game and say, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they
yeah,
doing that?
exactly. I got two things to say to that. One, as you know, no, my senior year, my father passed away right before the season. All right. And I mean, you and Coach Scott, I just remember, my mom was like, come downstairs and, whatever. So I come downstairs and you two were sitting there.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, what the hell are they doing here? I didn't know you guys yet like that yet, right?
Yeah, I
So
know. I know.
in my head, I'm just like, what are they doing here? But it really meant a lot though, honestly, to see you two there after that happened, because as you know, after that, you became one of my probably the closest father figure I've had for the next 15, 20 years of my
Yeah.
life, right? So, I mean, from then on, that was pretty much, um, you know, I believed in you after that, honestly. Like, sometimes, coaches there just a coach, they give them about you. I didn't even know you, and you were sitting in my living room after my father died. And to keep honest with you, I don't even think you guys said anything. It was funny. I walked in, and you guys were just like, yeah, man, I don't know. Like, it's tough, man. It's tough. I know
Yeah.
what you were trying to do, but I know it just didn't come. So I
Yeah.
was kind of like,
I knew there was nothing. There was nothing I could say at that point that's gonna make you feel anything but. It was just. I remember calling Coach Scott and going, "We got to go over and see this kid." And you're right. We hardly knew you, but funny you say that because I'm going to share a story with you. You came to me. I'll never forget this. Out of the little storage closet where we kept our stuff, at Columbia, and you're like, Coach, listen, and you were very complimentary to me, like you're one of my mentors, whatever. But the things some people are saying about you, it hurts me, and I don't want to hear it and stuff. And it meant a lot to me that you were that loyal to me as an assistant coach. And I mean, listen, parents are parents, and that it bothered you that parents were saying some bad stuff about me when I was coaching. And, once again, it just showed me like the loyalty of you. And that's why, you've always been one of my favorites. And that's why I always root for you. And I always say this to young coaches. You got to find assistants that are loyal and, don't always have to agree with you. That's not the real world. Like, you know what I mean? But I've
yeah,
had
but that should
you.
be between us. You know what I mean?
I
It's
had
not.
Coach Scott, awesome. Pinto was great. I mean, and I have my friends like Coach Pace. You
Mm,
know what I mean? And I had a guy at the two guys I had at Columbia. You know, were great. I mean, and I've been very, very lucky that I've had really good assistants. I've never had an assistant coach that I ever had, had to have an issue with, and I've been very lucky in that sense because I've heard some hard. We were playing really early in my career. We were playing somebody, and so the game ends. We had won the game, and the JV coach from the other team was talking to my JV coach, not Coach Scott, before him, and he was saying how, yeah, this guy don't know what he's ripping the varsity coach to my JV coach, and I was standing there, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, like, you're doing that to the guy you work with, like, you know what I mean? So
they hired you.
Yeah, like I just, so that's why I remember that day. And maybe that was the thing too, where I was said, you know what, maybe it's time for me to go. Maybe it's time for me to turn the program over to Eddie. But like, it meant a lot to me that you were telling me that and that you were loyal to me and, that it affected you in that way. So, it meant a lot.
And one quick confession I had to make to you. Asazal said, Russell's probably gonna hate me for this, right? At one time we came in late to practice and you had us running crazy. Right. We said we had to do something in the library. I tell you that.
Well, you were out with some girls or something?
Had nothing to do with the library, I'll tell you.
Oh my God.
You probably do that too. But he was like, we thought we was gonna get out of the suicides, right? So
because you said I had to go to the library?
Yeah, we were like, we had a project we do. We got to do this photography, some class or whatever. Right? So we waited, right? Because we just not feel like running that day, bro. I did not feel like running. He didn't feel like running. I was like, man, I don't feel like doing 4 suicides. Right? So we waited. We looked at the time. It was like a half hour pass or something like that, maybe 25 minutes. He was like, oh, they got to do it now. We come downstairs. And he's like, yeah, do your suicides on the side. And then we were done.
No, it's funny too. I remember another story. You called me one night. You did. I think it actually might have been the game against Lance Thomas's team. Who was that?
Oh, yeah. Scotch Plains. They held me to 0, actually.
And you called me, and you were so disappointed in yourself. And you were like, that's not me, and whatever. And I just, again, like when I hung up the phone, I said, wow, like here's a kid who like really cares about his team, and like, you felt like you didn't give enough that day, but I'm pretty sure like, you played great defense and you did your job in other ways, and I remember, but you feel like you didn't, give enough, and you're a kid who like really cared about his team and, wanted to win and, want to do their best. And, it meant a lot too. Like
that in the Morristown game were the worst 2 games of that season, I think, for me. I'm like, that was the last game of the season, the Morristown game. So
yeah,
that was like, and I had just had a great game against Morristown. I had like 15 points in the 3rd quarter against Morristown. That's like the week before. And then I came back and I couldn't hit shit. Nothing.
It's funny. My worst game in high school was against Waldwick. We're on a 9-game winning streak or something. We were playing great, and I had a great senior year. I was one of those kids who junior year, and then I just out of nowhere, horrible game, couldn't hit shit. Then started getting frustrated and got in foul trouble because you're not hitting anything and you're frustrated at the other end. And, we ended up losing the game. And it was the only game the whole season I didn't score double figures. And I just remember, like, my point being, it happens. Like, you know what I mean? It happens to all of us. Like,
Yeah. It sucked when it's the last game of my high school career, right?
I know. Terrible. But anyway, oh, boy. The missus is giving me the sign. I'm supposed to go. Just like you said, I got to go shopping. I got to go pick up some.
All right, Coach. Thanks for being on, man. Hopefully one day you can come on again, man. I appreciate it. I love you. You're one of the best men I've ever met in my life. I appreciate everything you've done for me. You started my coaching career. You hired me. So for those that don't know. So
I appreciate that, and I love you too. And again, you're the one, like, is you and your team, like, it's so easy. And then you make coaching what it is. You played for me, and then you came back and coached with me, and it's the greatest. It's the greatest thing when you coach a kid and then he comes back and coaches with you. And then you took over the program and you were great at it and you were successful. And you beat Seton Hall. What the hell?
Yeah, I got to beat Farrell and the other guy.
I know.
I was proud before he left. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I almost had Hurley. I was up 17 in the 3rd quarter on Hurley, and he still came back and beat me by 10.
I know.
That would have been a great career accomplishment.
That would have been awesome. Yeah, I know. That was great. I remember I was actually talking to Mr. Gray for some reason, and He's like, guess who we're playing? I'm like, who? He's like, this is before you could find everybody's schedule. He's like, St. Anthony's. I was like, really? He's like, oh yeah. Oh, that was great. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right,
All
Coach.
right, Coach. Thank you. I'm gonna send you the link and everything so you can.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.